The single most badass era in the entirety of Japanese culture is this. Feudal Japan. I mean, look at it. It's just so cool. When you think of Japanese history and you think of this era in particular, I know that there are many things that may conjure to mind just thinking about this. Historians have reflected on this era of Japanese history for a long time, and there are always new stories to uncover, including the one that we know about today. Yes, we are talking about that time an African man became the first and only Japanese samurai. Hello! Welcome to Brain Spill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and this is one of those topics which, when I first found out about it, I was very surprised that it wasn't a film, because it's just that interesting. I then later found out that it's actually a Netflix series, so there's that. But this is one of those stories in which there are two cultures unlike anything else, which come together and create something very unique. This is the story of Yasuke, the first man outside of Japan and the only African to become a samurai. In the 1500s, Portugal had a number of trading outposts along the coast of the Asian Pacific, including one in the southern reaches of Japan. Here, many silk traders would come and go from this port, including priests who would arrive by boat, bringing their ideals and beliefs with them. In particular, a sect of the Italian Jesuits missionaries arrived in Japan in an attempt to convert people to Christianity. In the 1580s, Christian monks in Kyoto, Japan were being established at the time under the permission of leading figure Lord Oda Nobunaga. This was largely down to the fact that Lord Nobunaga actually had some form of an admiration for the West, which was particularly strange given that many people at this time were quite wary of outsiders, which is completely understandable when you've got European settlers and empires running amok around the entire world. And talking about European empires, Portugal. Yes, as you might imagine, at this time in history, there was a lot of empire building going on, in particular in the African continent, where Portugal were heavily involved in the slave trade to what is now known as Mozambique. You know what, it's funny how you can go from country participating in the slave trade all the way to the point of trying to convert people to Christianity. Just doesn't really seem to meld together now, does it? So basically, many local chiefs would use their own populace in order to be bartered around in the slave trade, and these slaves would be used as labour across the entire empire. And for Portugal, that was no exception, due to the fact that they'd managed to establish these trading outposts in some ports in Japan. So, what I'm saying is that if it wasn't for the slave trade, this story would probably have never happened. I'm not condoning the slave trade in any way, I'm just saying that that's where we're at, realistically. Slavery's bad, okay? Yeah. Portuguese priests would arrive in Japan with a servant, a black man from the African continent who, as you might imagine, was probably not what a lot of Japanese people had ever seen before. Being a black man, well built, 6'2" in size, he was much bigger than most people in Japan. Now, a little word of warning when going forward at this point is that whilst we know that Yasuke did exist and that he was there as a samurai, the records that we have on him are kinda sketchy, and whilst we don't fully know the circumstances around Yasuke, and we also don't know what his birth name was, we know that he was called Yasuke once he arrived in Japan, and once he became a samurai. But, of course, we are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves at this time, so let's just go back a little bit. Yasuke was a slave brought over from the African continent and taken to Japan. Despite the fact that Yasuke was a slave, he was actually treated very well by the monks he was with, and treated with a lot of respect. So I guess they aren't the worst slave owners? Still no justification, but I'm just saying. The fact that this East African man stood a foot taller than everyone else there, he had quite a local celebrity appeal to him. Being quoted as the man with charcoal-like skin made him very well known, and would even get the attention of Lord Nobunaga, who wished to meet this man face to face. Sorry, did I say wished? I meant ordered. Bearing in mind that this was the Lord, and when he heard about this man, he originally didn't believe he existed. Yes, Lord Nobunaga believed that Yasuke was a straight up lie, clearly that he had never seen a person like this before in his life. So, when he was presented in front of the Lord, you can imagine that he was probably pretty gobsmacked by the fact that he'd seen someone like this for the very first time. He even allegedly ordered for somebody to scrub his skin to make sure that it wasn't charcoal. So, the less we say about that, the better. Lord Nobunaga was very interested in Yasuke, stating to his administration that he believed he possessed the strength of 10 men. He was so interested in Yasuke, in fact, that he even asked him to join his service, aka he wanted Yasuke to become a samurai. As samurai, he would be granted his ceremonial garments, short sword katana, alongside being given land and a home to call his own. Being granted the duty of weapon bearer, it is likely he would have been trained in the Bushido Code, basically the way of the samurai. AKA certified badass moment. It doesn't get much better than that, folks. And to say that this guy came from slave all the way up to samurai, that's a pretty big step up. There are records that go on to state that Lord Nobunaga enjoyed talking to Yasuke, and due to the fact that it is very unlikely that Lord Nobunaga spoke Portuguese, it is believed that from a young age, Yasuke may have been taught Japanese to help him integrate into society, and really able to assimilate with people around him, which clearly worked wonders and just goes to show how well-rounded of a character Yasuke must have been. Yes, whilst he was a respected and loyal man, the thing he was needed for most was his fighting ability and his strength. Fighting along Lord Nobunaga and his men, they would go on to conquer much of Japan. And whilst we don't know the full circumstances, it's very likely that he would have gone on and been by his side as a samurai for much of that time, seeing many conflicts along the way. An incident in June 1582 led to Lord Nobunaga's men largely being split to conquer local tribes near the Kyoto region, but had a few loyal followers by his side when he rested, with of course Yasuke by his side. However, he was betrayed by one of his own generals, Akeshi Mitsuhideo. Yeah, that's it. He had routed out his position to the enemy, who managed to make a surprise sneak attack on the temple they were staying at. Knowing they were vulnerable and fighting against impossible odds, they fought valiantly. However, despite this, Lord Nobunaga had to commit seppuku, the act of turning one's blade on thyself, in order to avoid capture. Look, I told you that feudal Japan was badass, and that's just one example. So, anyway, Yasuke understandably managed to escape in the nick of time by getting a horse and riding off, but at the same time he would then go to Lord Nobunaga's son to help him in his efforts as to where he was. To which at this point we know that he fought by his side and may very well have been captured, and that is kinda where the trail runs cold. We don't actually know exactly what happened to Yasuke, with some records suggesting that he may have been let go and returned to the monks that he was with, due to the fact that he wasn't ethnically Japanese. However, other people might suspect that due to the fact that he was a samurai, he may have suffered the ultimate fate. But I know one thing for sure, and that was that Yasuke has cemented himself in history as a true samurai badass. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. Yasuke was so much of a legend, in fact, and this is actually true. Many areas in Africa are actually trying to claim that he was originally from their area in the African continent. Places in particular are Mozambique, South Sudan and Ethiopia, all claiming that Yasuke came from their places originally, which is amazing because it even goes to show that this guy was so awesome that they want to claim rightful ancestry of this guy. And again, this just goes to show how much of a legend this guy actually was. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.